Today we're going to be talking about Richard Chase, who's known as the Vampire of Sacramento. He was a serial killer whose gruesome crimes terrorized California in the late 1970s. His story remains one of the most disturbing in true crime history, not only because of his acts, but also due to the chilling psychological descent that led him there. If you guys enjoy this video, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can follow for more content. Chase was a native of Sacramento, California. He was born shortly after his parents got married and had a younger sister named Pamela. His parents were prone to arguing with each other during his childhood. On one camping trip in Oregon, his mother, Beatrice, accused her husband of having an affair with a woman hiding in the bushes, which is described as having ruined the trip. It has been claimed that Chase's father physically disciplined Richard as a child, but that his actions were not out of the ordinary for families during that era. By the age of 5, Chase privately exhibited evidence of all 3 parts of the MacDonald triad, a theory suggesting the development of violent psychopathy. The triad links cruelty to animals, obsession with fire setting, and persistent bedwetting past the age of 5, to violent behaviors, particularly homicidal behavior and sexually predatory behavior. These internal issues did not affect his early school life, with over 60 children coming to one of his birthday parties. In his adolescence, he was said to be a heavy user of drugs such as marijuana and LSD. As a teenager, Chase also discovered that he was impotent, which prevented him from having sexual relationships with women. One of Chase's first instances of strange behavior as an early teen occurred when he started to believe he was a member of the James Younger gang. Chase even pasted his head onto photos of them. Chase would also sometimes sleep in his family's lounge room, and when he did this, he would take all of his clothes off, turn the heater on as high as it would go, and then open the windows. While Chase was described as being popular and clean-cut during his high school years, he started to become withdrawn once he entered adulthood and had a more unkempt appearance. Once graduating from high school, Chase attended American River College between 1968 and 1971. His grades were declining and he started not attending classes, eventually dropping out. Chase developed hypochondria as he matured. He often complained that his heart would occasionally stop beating or that someone had stolen his pulmonary artery. He would hold oranges on his head, believing vitamin C would be absorbed by his brain via diffusion. Chase additionally thought that his cranial bones had become separated and were moving around, so he once shaved his head to be able to watch this activity. Chase first worked in a typing and phone answering job for Retailers Credit Association during 1969 while enrolled in American River College. In the next few years, Chase continued to find other odd jobs in Sacramento, but none of them lasted long due to his heavy amounts of drug use. Shortly before dropping out of American River College, Chase shared an apartment with Sid Evans DeMarchi and Rachel Statham in 1971. The two found him sitting on their front lawn one day in February and began talking, with Chase convincing them to let him become a roommate of theirs. His parents gave him $50 each month to help him pay his share of the rent. DeMarchi and Statham both moved out due to Chase's behavior. He was usually high on drugs and walked around naked in front of visitors. He also barricaded himself in his room, explaining that he did this so no one would be able to sneak up on him. He then shared the apartment with Statham's brother and his friends. These new roommates had a rock band, and Chase often interrupted their sessions wanting to play the conga with them. However, they didn't want him to since he didn't sound good, and this caused arguments. Statham's brother and his friends also eventually moved out, and Chase was unable to afford the rent by himself. Chase's parents divorced in June 1972, and he frequently fought with his mother. He believed that she was trying to poison him, something which she had accused her husband of doing to her when Richard was a child. During one lone trip to Utah in 1972, Chase was arrested for driving under the influence, and he told his parents that he had been gassed in the local jail and that he wanted to sue the police. His father bailed him out of jail and convinced him against suing the police. He alternated between living in his mother's residence and his father's new residence, since they were both finding it difficult to deal with his increasingly erratic behavior. When Chase's father kicked him out of his residence, neighbors reported that he would stand still by the property, blankly staring at it for extended periods of time. At this point, his father didn't believe that the troubles in his life were due to mental illness, but rather a lazy work ethic and misguided values. In late 1972, Chase's mother attempted to call the police on him during an argument, when suddenly Richard grabbed the phone and whacked her on the head with it. She was still able to call the police, and he ran outside and jumped over the fence. The police said they could press charges against her son, but she decided not to. Following this incident, Chase had 2 separate stints living with his grandmother in Los Angeles, who noted his odd behavior. During the first stay with his grandmother, Chase worked for his uncle as a bus driver of mentally disabled children. However, he was fired for never cleaning the bus and letting it run low on oil. After being fired from the bus job, he spent most of the day in his bed and roamed the house at night. He became convinced that someone was trying to enter his grandmother's house through a window. His grandmother also heard him talking to himself and once found him standing on his head in the corner of his room. He told her that he was trying to get the blood to run back down to his head. At other times, he complained to her that his heart was hurting and spoke of pain in his legs. During his second stint in Los Angeles, he found a job working at a paint store, but was fired within days. Chase's grandmother said that both his mental state and physical appearance had deteriorated during his second stay with her. When Chase returned to Sacramento for good in the summer of 1973, he began cutting out photos of human organs from a medical book and pasting them all over his bedroom. Around this time, Chase called an ambulance to his house, saying he needed medical attention. However, they refused to take him to the hospital when they found out he was not suffering from a medical emergency. Chase later went to his mother, begging her for help with his supposed medical conditions. She responded by getting him in contact with 2 different doctors. Chase was dissatisfied with the prognosis these doctors gave him, so he went to see Dr. Donald Ansel. Ansel found there to be nothing physically wrong with him and concluded that Chase had a psychiatric disturbance of major proportion. In 1973, Chase killed one of his cats when he saw a television story about a cat that had received high-quality medical treatments. The story aggravated him since he believed that he deserved these same treatments. In 1975, Chase was institutionalized after injecting rabbit blood into his veins, causing him to become gravely ill. At the hospital, he terrified staff by killing birds and drinking their blood. Despite his disturbing behavior, he was deemed not a danger to himself or others and released into his mother's care. His mother decided he no longer needed medication, and Chase spiraled further. He began capturing and killing animals, blending their organs with soda in a blender, and drinking the concoction. He believed this ritual was necessary to prevent his heart from shrinking. On December 29, 1977, Chase claimed his first human victim. Ambushing 51-year-old Ambrose Griffin, a father of 2, Chase shot him in a drive-by attack. This seemingly random murder marked the beginning of his descent into full-fledged serial killing. On January 23, 1978, Chase entered the home of Teresa Wallen, a pregnant 22-year-old. In a horrific attack, he shot her 3 times, then mutilated her body, drinking her blood and taking her organs as trophies. 4 days later, Chase committed his most heinous crime. He broke into the home of 38-year-old Evelyn Moroth, who was babysitting her 22-month-old nephew, David. Evelyn's 6-year-old son, Jason, and a visiting friend, Dan Meredith, were also in the house. Chase shot Dan as he entered the home, then killed Evelyn, Jason, and David. What he did next shocked even seasoned investigators. Chase mutilated Evelyn and drank her blood, then cannibalized parts of her body. He abducted the infant David, and his body was later found in a horrific state. Chase's spree ended thanks to a series of eyewitness reports and a neighbor who noticed his erratic behavior. Police found him in his apartment, which was a scene of horror. Blood-stained walls, organs in the refrigerator, and numerous articles about Nazi crimes and blood rituals. In 1979, Chase was convicted of 6 counts of first-degree murder. Despite his clear mental illness, the jury rejected his insanity defense and sentenced him to death. Chase was sent to San Quentin State Prison, where other inmates feared him, calling him Dracula. On December 26, 1980, Chase was found dead in a cell after overdosing on antidepressants he had hoarded. Richard Chase's crimes were driven by profound mental illness, and his case raised serious questions about the treatment of the mentally ill in the criminal justice system. His story remains a haunting reminder of how untreated psychosis can manifest in unimaginable ways, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake.